All right, people. Hey, people, how you doing? My name is Tim Black. Welcome to the Tim Black Show. This week's Power Hour. I have a great guest. He is a journalist. He is the founder of Context Media Group and a writer, social media influence with over 50 bylines in publications, including Teen Vogue, Huffington Post, Splinter, formerly Fusion, and Race Bait R. He's a producer and director of the documentary 5 Years, Mike Brown and Ferguson. I got to check that out. Now in the host of Wednesday's Wisdom, a weekly news and information series. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Torraine Walker. What's up, Torraine? How you doing, brother?
How you doing, Tim? It's good to be here, man.
Man, thank you for taking time out, my friend. I mean, so much is going on. We were talking off camera, man, about wow, Torraine. If you could put it in one word, man, your reaction from last night's election, what would it be?
Oh man, one word, chaos.
Chaos. Good word. That's the journalist coming out of that brother right there, y'all. Chaos. I would say, I can't say unsurprised. I'm steady. I'm steady because I know that some people are really, really pulling their hair out, and obviously us brothers, we follically challenged, so we don't pull our hair out over much, because we kind of used to being on the bottom. We're used to being at the lower end of things and just reacting to the United States, whatever happens politically. But I'll say steady, man, because I didn't expect much. I don't know about you, Torraine, but I didn't expect much out of the Democratic Party. I didn't expect this, but I'm not surprised as in, oh my God, I need to run down the street and pick up a passport and get up out of the country. How you feeling, Torraine?
I can agree with you about not being surprised. I am a little bit surprised at some of the polling demographics that are coming out, but I'm not really surprised at some of the people who have faith in this system to save us. If you look at some of what's been happening, man, I think a lot of people are shocked that certain demographics that they expected to have in the bag with very little effort are starting to push back, and they push back with their vote. You know what I mean? And a lot of people in the pundit world and a lot of people in the polling and the political consultant world are really scrambling right now because they really don't know what to do.
Yeah, now Torrain's referring to some of these demographics now. Sean King, he sent out a graphic. I've been trying to fact check it. I don't know if I sent support for Trump by race and gender. This is an exit poll analysis, and it compares 2016 to 2020. And what we see is that black men, for instance, went from 13 to 17. Black women, ironically, went from 4 to 8%, which is double. Latino men went from 32 up to 35. Latino women from 25 to 28. White men actually dropped from 62 to 57, and white women went up 2 points, from 52 to 54. What was surprising is the number of white men kind of went down from 56 to 52, but white women made up the difference, going up from 52 to like 55. So it's sort of, and I don't know what our Asian brothers, indigenous brothers, where they land, but it's a movement, as you can see, some movement there towards Donald Trump.
I think what you're seeing with those numbers is not so much support of Donald Trump, but frustration with the DNC and the Democratic Party. There are a lot of people of color and black people who feel like that the Democratic Party has pretty much ignored their concerns, especially with black voters, especially black male voters. I think we've tried to go into the system and try to beg people to try to pay attention to what we're doing and try to beg people to see our humanity. And we're having to fight not the people who we think are our enemies, but the people who claim to be our allies. And I think what you're seeing in the reflection of these polling numbers is people who are tired of that. They're tired of arguing. They're tired of begging so-called allies to be a friend, and they're voting with they're using their hand to vote.
So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Torraine, man, because he keeps it real. And he's not, he understands that it's not a zero-sum game as in black people didn't vote for the Democrats, so that means they're Trump supporters. Nah, it means they don't have a lot of choices. And there were votes they were there to get that obviously they could have gotten if they would have made people feel as if you're speaking to the needs of the people. In New York, Torraine, not to jump too fast, but in New York, there's a new congressman, the first openly black gay congressman. I think he's also Latino. His name is Richie Torres. Now, Richie Torres went on CBS. I sent you the clip. I did it a little late. And this is what he had to say about the Latino vote, because people are very upset about Latinos, they catching shade, who voted for Donald Trump.
So Is this some kind of wake-up call to Democrats? Because your soon-to-be colleague, AOC, did tweet last night that this is something that she'd been warning the Democratic Party about when it came to specifically Latino voters and some of the weakness there that it looks like Democrats had. Do you consider this also a sort of a wake-up call?
It should be a wake-up call. There needs to be serious soul-searching. And one of the lessons learned from this election cycle is never take votes for granted. Never treat a demographic like Latinos as a automatic voting block. You have to earn every single vote. You should take nothing for granted. Err on the side of over-campaigning.
Good advice for any politician. All right, well.
So basically from that clip, man, what I got, Torraine, is that he sounds like black man talking about what the black community, the main concerns of the black community about representation, about our issues being present. I don't see any difference between him talking about Latinos and how we've been talking about black folks. The only difference, I think, is black women go in on us when we say we're not getting anything for our vote for some reason. But Latino women, I haven't seen them really go after my Latino brothers for saying the same thing.
Yeah, you're not. And he's right. I mean, he's absolutely right that if you want to get somebody's vote, you have to earn it. The difference between what he's saying and what black men and some black women are saying is that he's going to get results from what he said. What's going to happen with a lot of black people is going to be a lot more pandering. It's going to be a lot more just wait on us and we'll come around to you at some point. And really nothing's going to really change. Now, I want to make a couple of points. I think people are lumping in this rise in the Latino vote with all Latino groups. And there is just as much diversity in Latino groups as there is in African Americans. What you're seeing is really the result of the Cuban American vote, and Cuban Americans overwhelmingly vote Republican. They are not, as a group, they tend to vote very right wing because of their history with, being funded from the American regimes to fight Castro. So that's what you're seeing with that. And I think it's a mistake to try to lump all Latinos into that group. But the Cuban vote in Miami is a very powerful vote. It's very influential. Now, as far as black men and black women saying that they're tired of being pandered to and they want their vote earned, it's not so much that black women are attacking black men. It's just the small group of black women and the handful of black men who work in media and who have influence and who have voices are doing that. And because their voices carry a lot further than the working class and the poor, that's why it seems that way. And because it's an easy fix for the Democratic Party to offload their hostility to black people and poor and working class people onto these people, that's why you're seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, when I refer to black women that are coming at black men with these issues concerning the vote for Donald Trump, I'm referring to not the average sister that you run into on the street, or my wife, for instance, Mrs. Black. She's definitely in stock. We're in lock stock. We're on the same time, I should say, when it comes to this. But I am referring to those people. And really, you're right. Let me just call it out. Jamil Hill is one of those people that I know you saw my tweet about this, and I've seen your comments in regards to this, even to a further extent. There's specific folks who have made it their job to go after us for voicing our frustration with the system, voicing our frustration with the Democratic Party specifically. I mean, hey, man, I call out the Democrats on these issues because previously, the last couple of elections, I've always voted Democrat. So they're the ones I have a vested interest with. And the Republican Party doesn't show me anything. I don't see anything with the Republican Party that would get me to vote for them. I can't see that at all. So if I'm in big and tall men's sizes, I'm only going to talk about big and tall men's clothes. I can't bow off the rack, bruh. If you're black, you can't bow off the rack and and have all these options. Okay, as the big guy, I don't know if you had this problem, but I do. So I can't just shop everywhere. So as a black voter, I don't think you can just shop everywhere. You can't just shop Republican or Democrat because right now they don't offer anything. And for a while, the Democrats did appear to be the one shop you could go to where you could find a shirt. Now, it may be a little irregular, Torraine. You know what I'm saying? The one sleeve may be a little longer than the other. The hem might not be straight, but I could wear it. And when it was dark out, you couldn't tell that it didn't fit properly. But now things are starting to show that the Democratic Party, their clothes don't fit us no more, man. Yeah, and that's where I'm at. Does that analogy make sense to you?
No, it makes perfect sense. But what's wild about it to me is that It's the most hostility they have is not towards people who are claiming to be our adversaries. If you are your base, if you're the base of the Democratic Party, which is they've always been telling us as Black people, and you're going to the DNC and you're going to establishment Democrats and telling them, look, these policies that you have in place aren't really serving us. This is what we need. And these people are more hostile to these people who they claim are their base than the Republicans are. Something is clearly wrong. And I think we've had the last 4 years where we've seen a lot of pandering. We've seen a lot of basically disregard of Black issues in favor of everyone else's issues. Not to say that everyone else's issues aren't legitimate,
Right.
but other people get a lot more shine and they get a lot more attention about what's going on with them than Black people do. And people are just tired of that. So they either sat home or they made another choice. You know, it may not have been the best choice, but neither is being allowed yourself to be pandered to and ignored. Here we are.
Here we are. Here we are. Do you think that the Democratic Party, as it stands right now, we don't know who won this election. So, like, we're both in a suspended animation. I don't know. We're in purgatory right now. We don't know. I don't know who's going to win this thing. But do you think the Democratic Party is poised to learn anything from this? I mean, folks. I mean, Torraine, there've been a lot of measures that show people came out and voted, man. They passed, in 5 states, they legalized marijuana. That should have been the issue that Biden ran on. He would have won New Jersey. He did win New Jersey, but he would have won Arizona walking away. He lost Montana. South Dakota is red, but they overwhelmingly came out to legalize recreational marijuana. I'm just saying that the writing's on the wall, Torraine. Are they going to wake up? Is this going to do it, or is it going to take something else?
Honestly, man, I don't really see anything waking up the Democratic Party as it stands today. These people who run the Democratic Party, I'm talking about Tom Perez and the people who are like the conservative and the moderate wing, they're so concerned about trying to appeal to the Trump voter that they're completely ignoring their center, not the center, but their liberal, their real liberal, and the progressive base. And honestly, these people just do not learn, man. And it's like the only thing that's really going to happen is a catastrophe. Or in the case, I hope, if Biden does not win this thing, maybe that'll wake them up possibly, but I don't have any faith in that.
It's so frustrating, brother. I mean, I criticize the Democrats because I want them to be a better party. And I noticed today a number of folks were coming out with criticism for the Democrats. And I'm like, wow, look at them, Torres. They're criticizing the Democrats. A day late, a dollar short.
Yeah.
You know, like, what good is criticizing them now? Anybody can criticize you after you wreck the car. It's the people that take the keys from you before you get in the damn car and start driving. Those are your friends. So when you and I, Torraine, when we were criticizing them 2 months ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, we were trying to save them. And we were trying to also save ourselves. And they didn't look at it that way. And now, look, we have Trump. And then, look, man, if Trump is not the wake-up call, if he is what my brother Dr. Cornel West called an existential threat, then maybe we should want to beat him. And one of the ways you beat him, see, I feel, Torraine, the progressive tack that we believe in is not just because it makes us feel good. It's also a winner. It's also a winner. More Democratic Socialists picked up seats last night than moderate, liberal, moderate, milquetoast ass Democrats. That's just the tail of the tape. How you feel about that?
Man, people respond to solid platforms, and I think I think the public is not really afraid of solid, progressive platforms. It's just that the people who control the funding and the establishment of the left are really afraid to get into those conversations with people. I don't know what it is. I think they're so afraid of losing their centrist base that they're afraid to build with a progressive base that is much larger than that and is also younger, that you can grow a lot longer and you can have a more dedicated following than you will these people who are like, let's be frank, the average age of the establishment Democrat is around 55, 56 or so. You're only going to have that power base for a short amount of time. It would make sense to grab people who are coming out of college, who have progressive views, who are willing to work within the system and groom those people and cultivate those people as a base, but they just refuse to do it.
I agree, but I'll go a step further, man. I think it has to do with finances as well, money interests, lobbyists, the big donors, the corporate interests, the ties. And we're talking about corporate Democrats, man, who think with their wallet first and think about their constituents second. I mean, if they were thinking even short term, they would consider going this way. I mean, once again, we picked up in D.C., Torraine. Now, I know Trump lost and got his ass kicked in D.C., but we just approved psychedelics, mushrooms, bruh. Mushrooms, like they just approved mushroom usage. I mean, we passed weed and cannabis. We off into mushroom land. The country, in many ways, is going towards a more liberal, more progressive policy, particularly on these issues of Medicare for all, insurance, health coverage. $15 a minimum wage won by 20 points. I think it's in Florida. And Biden didn't win. Biden's not winning by 20 points in Florida. Trump is up by 3 points last time I checked. So that was on the ballot. So the people were there voting along the lines of the issues that we care about. And if you ran on those issues, those people will more than likely, fill the dot in with your name, Joe Biden. So I think there's a problem that they want to win, but they want to keep their money, the interest first, keep their donors happy, and the donors don't want these policies.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's a combination of, like you said, the moneyed interest and the fact that they just are not forward thinking. They are stuck in this idea that all you have to do is go back to refer to the past and show some pictures of Martin Luther King and show some stuff from the civil rights movement, and that's going to move people out, get people to the polls. That stuff doesn't work anymore. You have to hit people with policy. You have to be able to tell people straight up what you believe in and what you want to do and what you're willing to compromise and what you're not willing to compromise. And don't be afraid to lose some people, because you're going to gain more if you stand on your square. And that's what they're afraid of. They have this morbid fear of alienating the center. And the center is not the center anymore. The center is the right at this point in the Democratic Party. It's time to let those people go and grab people who are progressive and get into legislation that's going to benefit those people that they'll support.
Yes, I agree 100%. You would be in the media, you understand that. You have to pick an audience and go with that audience. You gotta decide, well, this is the kind of content I'm gonna make. These are people I'm speaking to. Other people can listen in if you want to, great, but it might not be for you. And the Democratic Party has a problem saying, hey, this is for people who like this. Do you want to end mass incarceration? We're the party for you. Instead, they try to tangentially, very quietly, generically, sort of attract you with symbols. Yeah. Let's get Let's get Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill or whatever Obama wanted to do. He could have been talking about emancipating all those prisoners that are in jail for low-level crimes and drug crimes that now that now are legal, that you have been incarcerated with for 20, 30 years. So that's one way to free the slaves, bro. That's one way to free the slaves.
Well, if he was going to do that, we have to talk about how they got there in the first place. He probably doesn't want to go down that road.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, let's just be real with it. That's another thing too. Look, in my opinion, there were much better candidates that the DNC could have picked to run this campaign.
Name two, Torraine.
I know this is going to make people this is going to upset a lot of people, but I think Bernie Sanders and Julian Castro would have been excellent people to get behind.
Why would they be upset with that? It's just true. But look, I don't know as much about Julian Castro, and I want you to enlighten me, but from what I did hear, he was on point on a lot of his social justice issues, his criminal justice reform issues, economic issues. But why would they have a problem with that? Obviously, he's more in tune based on those things with progressives than Joe Biden.
Well, here's the thing. I think part of the problem with Castro was the fact that he wasn't a legacy candidate. He was sort of seen as an up and comer, and he didn't have the war chest that somebody like a Biden can pull up, or a Kamala Harris. So that's what the problem was with that. But if you go back to his site, he had a whole platform for like criminal justice reform and decriminalization of Schedule I drugs, I believe, that was up before anybody else had one, and it was well thought out. It was actually a plan, and nobody paid attention to it, and the media gave it no attention at all. He basically had to hustle around, man. He basically had to sell his campaign out of the trunk of his car. He got very little funding, and then when it dropped, remember when he was at the first debate, and then they dropped him off at the second debate because he didn't have a war chest big enough. They said that straight up. That's the problem. You have candidates who have some ground level buzz, they have street level buzz, and people are starting to get behind them. But this party machine refuses to touch them because they're not legacy and they're not insiders as of yet. And that's how you keep getting these same decrepit candidates all the time, and these candidates that nobody in good conscience will vote for. And you have a situation that we're dealing with right now where the election is a horse race. It didn't have to be this way, but because they would not get behind the left wing and the progressive wing of the party, here we are.
Here we are, man. I said last night that I think the Democratic Party wasn't really focused on beating Donald Trump. I mean, I know they wanted it to appear that way. That was the rules. That was the rub. But the Democratic Party had their election back in March when they stole the election from Bernie Sanders. That was their election. Their whole goal, I think, was to thwart Bernie, stop the progressive movement, stop the bleeding, tie it off with a tourniquet, and keep it moving. And then if they beat Trump, well, hey, then COVID came through and they said, hey, maybe we could actually do this. Maybe we can get a twofer. But in my opinion, Torraine, I think the whole game was stopping Bernie cold. What are your thoughts, man? How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I think it was also, as you said, it wasn't so much about Bernie. Bernie was a symbol of the progressive movement that they had a dead fear of. I think, stopping him, sabotaging his campaign and setting him up to fail pretty much was their way of saying that, look, they want to do is keep the status quo. Somebody like a Bernie and even somebody like Trump upsets the status quo. But somebody like a Trump does not upset the status quo enough for them to make them uncomfortable enough to really fight him. So what they did was they found two people who, if your base is Black people and brown people, and your decision is to go with two candidates who are basically the living embodiment of the crime bill that broke up families and sent half of the men in their family and a lot of the women to prison, what do you expect to get out of that? What logical sense does that make to pick these people when I said there were other logical, more progressive candidates who didn't have that baggage?
Absolutely. My revulsion to Kamala Harris is not based on anything personal. My revulsion to Kamala Harris is based on her record. If you can't run on your record, maybe you should have made a better record. And Kamala Harris's record is horrible when it comes to the issues that I care about. Now, if you don't care about her ability to lock people up and throw away the key. First of all, I could never vote for somebody who used their law degree in order to incarcerate more people in the most incarcerated country in the Western world. Like, I don't understand that. At this point, at BLM, in the age of Black Lives Matter, you pick a cop. You pick the guy who wrote the 94 crime bill. And Torres, not just the guy who wrote the 94 crime bill, but the guy who boasted. He bragged about having his fingers on every piece of criminal legislation, every bit of incarceration legislation since the late 70s. He's been on it, man. So that to me is saying, we don't care about you damn progressives. We don't care about you liberals who lean progressive. This is our team. And what else you going to do? Where else can you go? What other choice do you have? And people showed them in where is it? They showed them in Florida and Ohio. They're showing them in Georgia. There's other places they can go. They showed them in Pennsylvania. And if Trump wins Pennsylvania, he's up by 7 right now. That could be game over. It could be. I'm not saying it will be. And I'm not saying I wanted to be Torraine. But what I'm saying is, just like if you ask me what time it is, I tell you it's 4:04. You may not like what time it is, but I didn't make it 4:04. You just asked me what time it is. And right now, what I'm telling you is, if Trump is up 7 in Pennsylvania and it stays that way, he could be headed to a second term.
Now, here's what's interesting about that. If that happens, I had a conversation with somebody about this earlier. If that happens and Trump gets a second term, you're not going to see much soul searching and a lot of introspection from the establishment Democrats. It's not going to be, what did we do wrong? What did we do to alienate our base? But they're automatically going to do, and you can see some of it starting already. They're going to start attacking people on the left, and they're going to start attacking people in their base for not voting hard enough, or they're going to start attacking non-voters for not voting for horrible choices. And you can see some of that starting to happen right now. I actually wrote about this a couple of days ago. I put out this, there was a thing that was going around on social media where a lot of these pundits and a lot of academics were trying to set up this scenario where like everything falls down to Black men. But it wasn't because they were trying to talk about the power of Black male voting. They were setting them up to be the scapegoat for whatever happens today. And you see that happening. I wrote a piece that was basically saying we've always had Black men and some Black women have always been the scapegoats for everything that's evil in this country. The problem now is so many pundits and so many people who look like us and claim to be our allies are willing to hold the rope. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, I'm not saying people, they're being sent out, but it seems like a coordinated attack that all of a sudden the issues are not so much with the way the Democratic Party and the DNC is handling things. It's about people who are disgruntled and frustrated, and it's their fault. That's dangerous, and it's not going to get them anything.
No, it's not. And I agree. We can't prove that they were coordinated, right? But people are smart enough to read the room. You know, they know they're sitting at the table and they're looking at what works and what doesn't work and what gets you advanced in corporate media and these structures. And they're going to do what they think is the status quo in order to advance. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be an email trail that ties them all together with a game plan of destroying black men and turning black men and black women against each other. I mean, come on, Torraine, we are the reason. If it wasn't for black people, there would be no Democratic Party. I mean, we are the most loyal constituency. Even when we look at the numbers, I think I told you this before going on camera about the numbers of voters, the Latino folks Latino women voted like 28%. For Donald Trump, Latino men like 35. That's slightly up from last time. Black women, they doubled from 4 to 8. Woo! 8% of black women voted for Trump, as if that's devastating. Meanwhile, you got white women who went to 55%. 55% of white women. Go ahead, brother.
You know, and it was 53 in 2016, right? So they jumped 2%.
They jumped 2%, brother. And white men actually came down. But the problem with that, Torraine, is more white men voted this time. So it kind of canceled themselves out. So it's less a percentage, but more in the overall amount of net votes due to the surge in voting. So, and black men, we went from 8%, I don't want to leave us out, from 8% to 13%. But Hispanic men were at 28. At least double our number. So look, we can do this all day. But the point is, we also have to stress, man, is maybe they wouldn't have done that if they were given an alternative. It's not like we got people who voted for Obama, who voted for Trump, who voted for Biden. The coalitions change depending on who's running Johnson. We got people who voted for Clinton and voted for Obama, who voted for Trump. Just because they don't like Biden and Clinton. But they weren't racist and bigots when they voted for Obama and voted for Clinton. And they didn't just become racist and bigots. They just look around and look at Joe Biden and say, what's great about this guy? What's this guy going to do? Didn't this guy do NAFTA? And one last point, Torraine, because I don't want to forget it. They always say that we need to get over the 94 crime bill. I saw a couple rappers on Instagram getting their likes up, getting their awareness up, saying that we need to get over the 94 crime bill. But nobody tells white voters in Pennsylvania to get over NAFTA. They don't say white voters in Michigan who left the Democratic Party because their jobs went away back in the 90s. We don't tell them to get over that. But it's okay for you to tell black men we need to get over the 94 crime bill and all the other crime-initiated laws that were pushed through by Joe Biden. So I find it disingenuous, hypocritical, and as they say, roosters come home to roost.
No, it's also a couple of things, man. The fact that so many people who are academics and political pundits are saying things like this shows you just how little political power that black males really have. Or I'm not going to say that. Let me say this. How little political power they're perceived to have. Because you can't go, number one, you can't go to any other group and say something like that and expect to keep your job and not expect to be challenged. But if you are an African-American person, your concerns, some of the pain that you've been dealing with, because of that crime bill, can be overlooked because other people have agendas that have nothing to do with you outside of using your vote to push whatever agenda they want to push through. And I think if you're an African-American person, or if you're an African person, you live in this country, and you fix your mouth to say to get over the crime bill, that you have no loyalty to yourself, and you absolutely have no loyalty to your people, and you're no use to anybody. I mean, look, I grew up in Florida. I saw the ravages of that crime bill and what it did to black communities firsthand. There are people who died because of that bill. There are people who went to prison for decades over minor offenses that will never see the light of day. They came out completely traumatized. I've seen that. You can't say that didn't have an effect on the black community in America as a whole. And until that's addressed, you're going to keep seeing people who are either going to vote by sitting home, or they're going to look for any alternative if it's not really addressed and it's not respected and that is acknowledged. And until that happens, you're going to continue this going on.
I like that, man. Torraine's so smooth with it, man. You see, it's not, he doesn't have to put forth all this effort I do. Man, I need to calm down. I'm gonna have a coronary up in this joint, getting all excited, man. But I'm just tired of the bullshit, Torraine. I'm tired of it, man. And when you said black men, we don't have his agency. We don't have the platforms. But hey, P. Diddy just started the Black News Network. Maybe P. Diddy will be that platform. Charlamagne just started a company. Maybe that'll be the platform where we could keep it real. But if they're going to be tied to the same corporate structures that their white counterparts, what difference does it make what color the owner is? We don't want capitalism and white supremacy with a black face on it. That's not what we're looking for. I realize that without honest, relentless, revolutionary conversations and people willing to make less money like you, Torraine, willing to take less cake, willing to have a smaller bag or no bag at all, or willing to take the hits from the Twitter blue check mark Nazis or whatever you want to call them. Until we're willing to deal with that, we ain't gonna get the truth out. And if we don't get the truth out, we're not gonna educate black voters, and in turn, they're gonna be frustrated. They're gonna end up voting against their best interests. So don't get it twisted. Voting for Trump is actually voting against your best interests. Don't listen to Trump talk that bullshit about he's the best thing to happen to black people since Lincoln. That's bullshit. Yeah. And he gave money to HBCUs after he cut HBCUs and cut education across the board with his piece of shit pick of Betsy DeVos. So he's got a lot to answer for. So Torraine and I think I can speak for us to say very clearly, we're not saying that Trump is the answer. What we're saying is neither are the Democrats right now.
Pretty much. I mean, nobody here is saying that Trump is where you need.
But you gotta say it, Torraine, because they're gonna label you, bruh. You critical of the Democrats. They won't make you be a Trumper. So I just gotta say that for you.
Well, you know what, man? You know how it is. It's like it goes back to what I was saying. Instead of dealing with these issues, they want to attack people who are bringing these issues to light. I'm not worried about that. I can defend myself pretty well when it comes to somebody trying to twist whatever I'm trying to say. But as far as the black demographic of voters, I think what you're seeing now, man, is just people just fed up. I mean, they're fed up with the rhetoric. They're fed up with their concerns being ignored, and they're fed up with people showing up only every 2 years or every 4 years to come in their churches and clap and kiss a baby or two, and then they disappear after they get your vote and you never see them again and you can't get a meeting with anybody. That stuff doesn't work anymore. And I think a lot of people on the ground, there are people who are doing political work, grassroots work on the ground who are aware of this, but the DNC and the Democratic establishment, and that's white, LGBT, black, Latino, whatever you want to call them, it's an establishment. They are not trying to hear that. And if they continue along this way, the party is not going to survive. It's just not.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but one of the latest scapegoats for what looks to be some losses in the House and not as much pickup in the Senate as they needed, they're blaming BLM. They're blaming the protesters. Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing white folks come out saying, if it wasn't for those protests, maybe some of these white suburbanite women would have voted for Biden, but they were upset that you burnt down the Target. I saw it on Twitter, man. I swear to God, that is something. That's a thing, and I think we're gonna see more of that. To your point, we're gonna see more blame game. BLM is their fault. Biden is not walking away with this, so that Biden's if he doesn't win, they're gonna blame BLM. Put it that way.
This is the sort of thing that children do, really, to be honest with you. When a child knocks over some glass or something like that, and you ask them what happened, they try to point at the dog, or they try to point at their little brother, or something like that. It's, man, if it wasn't so serious, it would be hilarious. But you have people who are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to gauge political opinion and do surveys and do polling to find out who they need to speak to. And these people will revert into this situation where nothing is our fault. It's with the people who we're supposed to be trying to reach, who are doing a horrible job of reaching with horrible candidates and horrible policies or no policy at all. And it's their fault that they're not responding to this. It's really fascinating. I don't know what to say about it. That's what I'm saying, man. Some of the stuff I've been seeing the past couple of days, I don't know what to say about half of it because it's so outlandish. It's just we live in interesting times.
Well, Jim Clyburn said he knows Joe. He knows Joe and Joe knows us. Don't look like he knew us that well.
When they say us, they're talking about the people they see every day and have lunch at the Capitol. They don't talk about the rest of us.
That's it. It's still too early to call, but if you're running against the worst president, and I think Trump is the worst president, okay, in the history of presidents. And I'm not just talking about U.S. presidents. I'm talking about presidents of the local skating rink association. You know what I mean? Class presidents of bad schools with no funding. Like Trump is like the worst president. If you can't beat that guy, you know what I'm saying? and look, and you can say it's our fault, Torres, but the numbers don't lie, man. He got his ass kicked in Pennsylvania so far. 7 points is a lot of points in your hometown, bro. If you can't do well at home, you can't win at home. You can't win anywhere.
Exactly. You know, you would think that they would have learned this lesson in 2016 when everybody thought Hillary was a lock, and then they woke up the next morning and they had a nasty, a rude awakening. There's just a level of cluelessness, and there's also a level of arrogance from the people who make these decisions, man, where they really think that their word is law, and these ideas that they play around with in think tanks and everything, and things they try to sell out to the masses are going to work, and they don't work. And instead of going back to the drawing board and saying, look, this didn't work this time. Maybe we need to refine tune this. Maybe we need to bring in some people who are close to the streets and close to the people who live but 9 to 5 and have real lives outside of this beltway. They don't do that. You know what I mean? What they do is they find somebody who's going to basically parrot or echo what they're saying, give that person a pundit position, or they're going to give that person a political position, and you get the same repeat, and you get the same result, which is what we're seeing right now. Like I said, it's too early to call, but it shouldn't be this close.
No, it shouldn't. It should not be this close. I mean, Biden didn't even run on climate. And a lot of people were pointing out to me that, Tim, all these things you say about Biden's true, bro. You're right. But the climate catastrophe that we're looking at, what good is it if we don't have a planet? So, I get their point, man. The Sunrise Movement, I get their point. Breonna Joy Gray was having a conversation with Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky got talking about the environment. And I agree. These are issues that you have to take them and say these are priorities for us to prepare the environment. But Biden didn't run on that. He didn't run on climate. In fact, what did he run on? I'm not Trump. It's not an issue, bruh. Like I think that's what he ran on. I'm not Trump. Similar to Hillary, who ran on, I'm with her.
Yeah.
That's not a campaign, Torraine.
There's people 4 years later who are still clinging to that slogan like a blanket, man, like Linus in the Pumpkin Patch, man. I don't get it. It's time to let that go and find something else. Give people some policy that they can really sink their teeth into and affects their lives, but they just will not do
it. If Trump is leading us to the brink of destruction, extermination of the human species via climate change, wouldn't it be incumbent upon the Democratic Party to stop him? I can't stop him. I know they want to make black men the most powerful. Like, you know, we control. Look, we control everything toward this. You know, if Weezy supports Trump, it's the end of the world, right? But if that's the case, we wouldn't have never came down to Trump and Biden because we don't pick them. So you can't say we're all powerful on one hand and then give us these crappy candidates and say, pick one. Because if we had that power, we would not be voting between Biden and Trump. We'd be voting between, I don't know, Dr. Cornel West and Bernie Sanders. I don't know. Ajamu Baraka. You name some people. Ajamu Baraka would be a candidate or something. Who would you pick if you could choose besides Bernie and Cornel West, because I already picked them?
I'm blanking on his name, but there's a brother down. He comes from a long tradition of movement people. I think his last name is Lumumba. He's like,
wow.
Yeah, it's not. I'm blanking on it now, but I think he's either mayor of Birmingham or Jackson, Mississippi, which you would never expect. This is a brother with a very quote unquote radical African name with an African African revolutionary legacy, but he's the mayor of a city in the deep South. But you never hear about that because if you don't know, because the Democratic Party isn't getting around people like that and pushing them up and elevating them. There's a lot of people who I can think of who could have been better than that. I think Barbara Lee would have been a good person. I think the sister running with Howie Hawkins would have been a good person to get behind.
Angela Walker, right?
Yeah,
right,
Angela
right.
Walker. You know, these people aren't corporate and they're not connected. You know, they're not in that group, so they don't get any kind of shine. So this is what we have.
But Nina Turner, damn, I didn't shout out Nina Turner.
Yeah, she's a real 100.
I meant to do that, bro. I meant to do that when we were naming the people. Good point about Angela Walker, man. I'll be honest with you, man. I haven't had the opportunity to really listen to her or have a conversation with her, but I voted green. I'm just one, full disclosure, I voted green. I live in Maryland. There's no way that Trump is going to win Maryland. I have to even worry about that. Not in Maryland. The only way he could win Maryland, I would like to say, is if he bought Marilyn Monroe. He got a, if they resurrected Marilyn Monroe, he bought her a Rolls Royce and a big diamond ring, maybe he could win Maryland, but he ain't going to win Maryland. So I had no worries. I wanted to help the Green Party as best I could with my little vote to try to push them towards that 5%. And so that's where I stand on it. But Angela Walker and Howie Hawkins, I voted for them because I felt that we need more parties, Torraine. Like, we need more options. We need, and they're the only party that's speaking to Medicare for all. They're the only party that spoke full-throatedly about climate change. $15 a minimum wage at bare minimum. At bare minimum, the originators of the Green New Deal, the real deal. So that's why I went that way. And so since I'm not getting what I want, and these are neither candidate that I would support, I'm not devastated, but I got to admit, at this point, I'm wondering what the Democrats, I wonder if they're going to have a party after this. I mean, everyone's not delusional, Torraine. Some people are smart enough to see the ship is sinking. I mean, they did not beat Donald Trump. I mean, still at this point, they could still lose to Donald Trump a second time, Torraine.
Yeah. I think you're always going to, I won't say always, but I think you're going to have a party because they're too well funded to not have it. But I think what you're going to have is not going to be, it's going to be the Democratic Party in name only, but what you're going to end up with, which is pretty much already a fait accompli, we're going to have a centrist, quote unquote, liberal party that takes in a lot of money and gives lip service to these causes, but does nothing to move anything towards that. I agree with your idea about we need more than two parties in this country. There's 350 million people in the United States. Two parties is not going to do it. Other countries, even though they have smaller populations, are able to build coalitions with multiple parties and get things done. It makes no sense that you have two parties with the same amount of donors who feed both parties out of both hands, with the same people who go from one to the other. If you get kicked out of one party, you can become a consultant on the other party, and nothing really changes. It doesn't make sense in the modern day. You got to have more variety for people to have more choices to get more things done, I think we're big enough for that. I think we're adult. I think enough of us are enough adults to be able to go for that.
And that explains the whole infighting. That explains the dysfunction in the Democratic Party. It needs to be two parties. I mean, us on the left need to be another party. That's what needs to happen. But they won't let that happen. Hence them stopping the Green Party from getting on certain ballots in key states. That was a concerted effort that took some doing. People, I don't know about you, but if the abusive spouse won't let you go, they can't complain that you're there and you're fighting them. Like that, they won't let us go. So a lot of people would leave the Democratic Party if there was somewhere to go. So that's part of the problem. I also want to point out this, man. Donald Trump did something last night I was still up broadcasting really late, bro. I broadcast late as hell. You can join me for one of those late broadcasts. I was up to like 2 o'clock, right? Donald Trump declared victory. Out of the blue, right? Oh, look, all the votes are counted. He just says, I won, it's over. And I laughed my ass off to him because the Democrats were complaining about it, calling it undemocratic and all these things, right? But isn't that the same thing Pete Buttigieg did during the primaries in Iowa?
Yeah, it's exactly what he did. It's also what happened with the it's also happened with the super delegates when Bernie was still on the ballot. They just basically said, what was it? I think it was it Iowa, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the Midwest states where he was up, and then they just said, nah, well, we're going to give these to Biden. That's all right. We'll take that. Don't worry about it. So you can't. Yeah. So look, we all know Trump is ridiculous. That's not a hard card to play. But if you are going to do things that make the average voter feel the same way, like you don't have a choice between one scammer and another, what do you expect? Which is why we have what we have right now, where everything is so down to the wire that anything can happen. We don't know what's going to happen by the end of the night, or maybe by the end of the week.
That's the thing, Torres. People are saying, well, I've seen some folks who call themselves progressive who got downright angry. Don't say that Biden and Trump are the same. They're not the same. Well, look, dude, to Torres' point, if you don't have a problem with Pete Buttigieg declaring victory when he didn't win, you can't then go have a problem when Trump does it. I mean, we're just being consistent. So if you're going to do the same thing Trump does, but do it in a more respectful manner or do it with less tweets, And you're doing, at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing. If Trump is deporting people and putting kids in cages, but the Obama administration did it as well, and Obama was a deporter in chief, then it's going to appear that they are very similar. I'm not saying they're the same, Torraine. I'm not delusional. I get it. There's a difference. Trump uses race to win. He don't give a damn. He Archie Bunker with the mic. He's real surgical with his bigotry. Okay, don't get it twisted. I understand that. But if Biden's also using it, what do you think a comment like, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't black"? Is that not racist? Is that not stereotyping black voters as being inauthentic or unblackness, erasing their blackness? Is that not a bigoted thing to say? Of course it is a bigoted thing to say. So if you're a Trump supporter, I'm sorry, Torraine, if you're a Trump supporter and you see that, and remember, not a Trump supporter or a Trump voter. If you're a Trump voter, because a Trump voter is not necessarily a supporter. That's a person that's saying, "Oh, Biden or Trump, oh, I'm going to go with Trump." That's different. That's not the same thing. That person doesn't have a Trump bumper sticker. He doesn't do tailgate parties wearing a MAGA hat. That's just a person who said, "I got two choices. I don't know who Howie Hawkins is. I'm going to go ahead and go with Trump." So to those people, when Democrats do things that are very similar to Donald Trump, then you start erasing the line between the two candidates, and now it becomes all personality. And if you don't run on policy, and all you running on is, "I got Kamala's brown."
Yeah.
So if that's all you got is Kamala's brown, but she was a cop, and Biden locked your brother up or your dad up. I mean, come on, man. I mean, I know I'm all over the place, but at the end of the day, bro, I'm sorry. I don't see a big difference between the two. And that's why if you had the 75-year-old or 76-year-old Jewish guy talking about Medicare for all, always talking about the issues, maybe people would have had something to choose between. And we know based on the polls, bruh, that Americans wanted Medicare for all, that they wanted universal health care. That's a winner in both parties. He could have won on that.
But if you make things like that, if you make issues like that the forefront of your party, your donors are going to have a problem with that. That's one of the things we're dealing with.
But the donors are us, Torraine. Bernie set records.
Not in the minds of the establishment Democrats. Their donors are banks. Their donors are bankers. Their donors are lobbyists. That's what their donors is. They don't give a damn about people giving Bernie $5. They don't. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it. But you got to look at the mindset of these people, man. These people don't give a damn about $10, $20. Even regardless of the fact that it amounts to millions of dollars, they want somebody in a suit that's going to come in with cash in hand in an envelope and can write you $100 million check. That's what they care about.
Yeah, man. When you're right, you're right.
That's just the brutal hard truth, man.
When you're right, you're right. That's the problem, right? So that's reality. And wow, brother. Well, look, Torraine, man, this has been a great conversation, man. I think we could go back and forth forever on these issues. Where do people go to find out more about you and Context Media?
All right, you can go to, if you want to see what I do, you can go to contextmediagroup.com. That's where our stories and our content lives. If you're interested in finding out more about what I do, you can always find me at Torraine Walker on Twitter, and you can look up Context Media Group and all the social media channels, IG, Facebook, everything, Context Media Group.
I like it, man. I love it. In fact, I think we should do more stuff together, man. And I want to find out more about what you got going on, because I got a website, bro, and it's itching to have content on it. I got a website. I also have a Facebook group. I need some good content, and we can link back to your repository. I said suppository. Repository. I'm trying to use big words. I got Torraine in the house.
Nobody wants that. Yeah.
Respect. I'm trying to set my game up here. But now, Torraine, man, I want to thank you for so many things, brother. We didn't even have the conversation I thought we were going to have about media and black men and their projection of all of their worst thoughts and nightmares being projected on the black men. But given the proximity to the election, what we're going on, I don't think right now would be a good time for that. But I'd love to have you back, brother, and have that deeper conversation, because you're one of the only people I see standing up for black men right now in a sea of hate.
And here's the thing. I just want to say one thing and leave that alone, man. It's like, it's not so much to me, like standing up for black men doesn't mean you're putting down sisters. And I also want people to understand that some of the rhetoric you hear about black men is not coming from all black women. Like I said, it's a very small group of people who work in media and who work in like television and they work in politics and they have a lot of issues with black men, either personally or they're dealing with some kind of trauma. That's where a lot of that's coming from. The majority of black men and black women outside of that world are together. It's just a small, loud group that's creating a lot of division.
And we need to get to that point because to Torraine's point, guys, Torraine's 100% right about that. And when I talk about these issues, Torraine, you know who really thumbs it up? Black women.
Of course.
Black women are all over. They're like, what? Black women go in on these critics of black men. They see the division. Mm-hmm. They're not fooled at all. So what we're really doing, like I said, media are the ones that are doing this projection. You're right. There are people, and I'm not saying that black men can't be critiqued. We can't be critiqued.
Yeah.
But there's a way to critique people that you love, bruh. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a way you talk to family, right? It's a way my wife talks to me. It's a way I talk to her because we respect one another, brother. And it's a way you talk to someone who you have contempt for.
Exactly.
It's the way you speak in front of company about your spouse. It's like, hold on, is that your wife, bro? Didn't you choose her? You know, I don't know if you ever been around brothers like that who got a real issue. Maybe they had a fight with their wife recently or their girlfriend or whatever, and they talk like that's not their partner. Like how'd y'all get together the way you talk? I mean, if you're a friend, I hate to see what their enemies got to say. So
it's real, man. It's like it's one thing to have a difference of opinion and even argue passionately about something, but when you're wishing death on somebody and you're wishing harm to somebody who's supposed to be your counterpart, something is seriously wrong with you, first of all, more than them.
Damn, wishing death. Goodness gracious, bro. We got a lot to talk about, guys. Okay, guys, go to contextmediagroup.com. Is it .com?
.com, yeah.
.com. Contextmediagroup.com. 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 I said it 3 times, so you got to go do it now. Torraine Walker, thank you for your time, folks. That's it for the Power Hour. I'm Tim Black. Follow me at Real Tim Black. Follow Torraine at what?
Contextmediagroup.com and Torraine Walker on Twitter.
There you go, guys. I love it, man. Peace, and we out of here.